This podcast is brought to you by
DylanPickups.com. When off the shelf, just won't do.
Good day, my fellow internet-dwelling knowledge seekers. Today we are going to take a look at the mind-bending question of, are we real or are we living in a simulation? Are the buildings and streets not made from concrete, rebar, and asphalt? Are the people on every corner of the globe just a quasicrystal projection designed to keep us content with a false perception of reality, while our every move and thought are controlled by an advanced being for entertainment using a quantum computer? Now some of us have no clue what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time explaining what the simulation hypothesis is, in depth, or how philosopher Nick Bostrom's Ancestor simulation theory made me stop playing video games in the fear that I may be interacting with beings that believe that they are as real as I feel, but focusing on how my obsession with perceived reality and consciousness led me to a theory that I believe to be the link in proving the simulation hypothesis. By using biological abnormalities in head trauma victims and ancient man's beliefs. So if you do not want your world turned upside down, just walk away from the computer, but if you are open-minded to the notion that we as a species are just starting to understand existence, buckle up, this may change your perception of everything. Let's start with the clip notes of the simulation hypothesis. While exploring the mathematics of string theory, theoretical physicist Dr. James Gates Jr. discovered binary code, computer code, buried deep within the mathematical equations of supersymmetry. The code he found was not just random ones and zeros, but it had a sequence to it and is the same sequential code that is used in computer browser operating system software today. This is the code that makes everything on your electronic device work, connecting us globally, and beyond, to one another. Now if that wasn't the most guano-crazy thing on its own, let's add in the fact that the more science explores physical reality, the harder this theory is to debunk. I can spend hours talking and writing about this theory, but that is not the point of this, so I will drop a few links at the bottom of this page for you to further explore. With that said, I would recommend showering and having food ready before you start that journey. As a person that enjoys proving people wrong, I went into this trying to discredit the simulation hypothesis using the reverse approach of physics, common sense, and simplicity. To be honest, I wanted it to be just a creative theory. The thought that life truly had no value other than entertainment for an advanced civilization moved me on an emotional level, and after a few years of countless hours of research, I had two things to account for my work: a vitamin D deficiency and a hypothesis that I could not only not debunk, but my research opened a new viewpoint of further proving the simulation hypothesis when understanding how the disorder known as acquired savant syndrome works. So what is acquired savant syndrome? Well, I think Popular Science said it best in an article published on February 12, 2013 called "When Brain Damage Unlocks the Genius Within." This article was showcasing people that had led an ordinary life up until the time that they suffered a traumatic brain injury, and just like turning on a light switch, they all had developed extraordinary talents that could not be explained using our current understanding of how the human brain works. The tagline they used in the article was "Brain damage has unleashed extraordinary talents in a small group of otherwise ordinary individuals. Will science find a way for everyone to tap their inner virtuoso?" Being a musician, and knowing how many years of frustration it took me to be able to play at a professional level, I was completely confused by Derek Amato's story in that article. Here was this guy living a normal life, and one day he hit his head while diving into a pool, and when he came to, he could play the piano at a professional level. After reading that article, besides having a few drinks, I really wanted to understand how someone that had never played the piano could have developed this talent just by hitting his head. So, I started contacting doctors that specialized in traumatic head injuries. Most of the doctors I contacted were very standoffish and would not talk about acquired savant syndrome at all, but one doctor that was living in India was kind enough to entertain a Skype call with me in regards, and what he said floored me. His theory was that in many ancient cultures there is the belief that there is unlimited knowledge in the universe that we all can gain access to through meditation and years of training known as the Akashic record. He was convinced that when a person suffers from a traumatic head injury and develops new abilities, that they are unlocking their ability to connect to their Akashic record, and are able to retain this new knowledge. He also said to think of the human brain as a radio antenna, and just like a radio you need to dial in a frequency to hear the program. In this example, you are the radio and the information is accessed by a frequency. When we are born, our body has its set frequency that allows us access to our Akashic record, and for the most part, the average person never deviates from that one frequency. So here was this man that was kind enough to talk to me about a controversial, unexplainable medical condition, and the way he rationalized it was with ancient spiritual beliefs. It took me a few months of reading up and learning about the Akashic record, but sure enough, his theory cemented the idea for me that the code that theoretical physicist Dr. James Gates Jr. discovered was not only real, but proved that we are really living in either a simulation or that the universe is all code and we are just understanding it now, and here's why. If you are a gamer, I'm sure you understand the term hack, as in you as the player in the game can gain access to unearned abilities making your avatar advance in the game, just without the hassle of actually doing the work that is involved to gain the ability, much like playing the piano in Derek Amato's story. So once I started looking at the simulation hypothesis as more of an information source that we all have access to opposed to a computer that is controlling us, much like many ancient cultures believed, well, it all clicked. This is where my aha moment happened. So let's sum this up by connecting all the dots so far using facts. Many professionals in the math and science community accept the simulation hypothesis as fact, as in an unexplained phenomenon of computer code found within string theory. So what is computer code? It is information at its simplest form, allowing mass amounts of data, information, and knowledge to be transferred from one point to another while altering its appearance to fit the user's perception of how the system is operating. In other words, it changes how we perceive the program so everyone can grasp the concept, not just the creators. We refer to this as a user-friendly program today. Many ancient civilizations shared a similar belief of knowledge in the heavens, but referred to this unexplained phenomenon as the Akashic record. They also believed that you could access this information via meditation and years of training by changing your body's frequency, energy and magnetic field to align your chakras. So we now understand that since we first started recording our existence as a species, we spoke of this belief. But how do we prove the link between ancient and modern man's belief? Well, that's simple, with modern technology. Medically, it has been proven that people suffering from head trauma that developed acquired savant syndrome, have subconsciously changed the mapping of their brain to use dormant parts that can only be recreated by using magnets to turn off parts of the brain in non-head trauma studies. When doing this, it resulted in altered mapping and unexplainable frequency interference during an MRI in unused parts of the brain. Wired magazine published an article on July 20, 2012 called "Unlocking Your Inner Rain Man by Electrically Zapping Your Brain" that was written about gaining access to the untapped knowledge in your own brain based on neuroscientist Paul Snyder's work based on a similar theory. Creepy, right? So with all that said, there is still no logical reason that a person without an ability develops one overnight from a head injury. Even if that person has unlimited access to everything that they ever knew, they would still have had to learn it at some point in their life, right? Hope you are following me so far, because this is where it gets nuts. There is this theory that everything that is happening now, has ever happened, and will happen, is all taking place at this moment, and that the construct of time is just perception. This theory, which is backed up by Einstein's theory of relativity, states that space and time are part of a four-dimensional structure where everything that has happened has its own coordinates in space-time. This would allow everything to be real in the sense that the past, and even the future, are still there in space-time, making everything equally important as the present. So if you mix that with all the fun facts we just put together, a person's Akashic record, known today as the computer code found in the simulation hypothesis, would also include all their knowledge from their energy that they had acquired up to the point of their head injury, in their future, and if you want to really go all out, let's include what we refer to as our past and future lives? Why not? How else can we explain these abilities? And let's not ignore the thousands of ancient and modern cultures that teach this very idea as fact. But there is still that one piece of the puzzle missing. How does the connection to this knowledge happen on the subconscious level? Quantum entanglement. This is a physical phenomenon that occurs when pairs or groups of particles are generated or interact in ways such that the quantum state of each particle cannot be described independently of the others, even when the particles are separated by a large distance. Instead, a quantum state must be described for the system as a whole. Now that was just the definition from Wikipedia, but I have a few theories that use quantum entanglement, so I will cover more in an upcoming blog and will include it in the links below for the fact checkers. If we are really living in a simulated world that is being controlled by some guy living in his mother's basement in another universe, well, that would completely suck, but I do not think that is the case. After studying this, I'm convinced that we as a species have very little knowledge of nature and science but are just starting to learn the truth, and it is freaking us out. It's like we are a teenager as a species. We think we know everything, and we can make our ideas work, but our understanding of everything is in its infancy.
If this podcast has offended you in any way, please let me know in the comment section below. If you have a topic you would like me to blog about or talk about on the radio or future podcasts, please visit modernlunatic.com and contact me via the site. Until next time, this is Jack Harrison, and I'll see you on the radio.